Make sure you download my free technique program. It's a program that identifies what is holding you back from reaching speed. Yellow. So in the beginning, when you're starting to write your own stuff, trying to come up with your own stuff, don't worry about stealing from others or being really inspired by others, because if that's what gets you going in the beginning, that's totally cool. It's just to get you started. I often get inspired. Of course, we're all inspired by each other, but the only point where you need to maybe think twice about it is if you're going to record something that you know that you want to release at some point. Maybe don't listen to an album that you really enjoy and then immediately after that go in and record your own stuff, because then chances are sometimes that you've been a little too inspired, and sometimes it's a little on the nose. It can be everything. It can be it can be in the lyrics. It can be, of course, it be in the melody or the rhythm, whatever. And sometimes you can hear if some guy he just listened to an album, the first song on an album, and then the first song on his new release is very similar. And of course, chances are if it's the same style of music, then it's very obvious where it comes from. Some musicians are interesting in the way that you don't really hear where his inspirations comes from. And what I want to say also about this is that the greater or the larger amount, the larger your inspirations vary, the bigger the chance is that people won't hear where your inspirations comes from. I've sometimes experienced when I listen to musicians and I think it sounds like their inspirations are very narrow. So, for example, if you like rock and roll, just standard boogie woogie rock and roll, then if you only listen to a few bands who play that same style, chances are that the references or the tools that you have to work with are very narrow, are very similar to the artist that you listen to. And so if people enjoy the music that you listen to, then you just need to be aware, of course, that people will most likely hear where your inspirations come from. And that's a little on the nose. And I mean, it's not that you can't enjoy something and it can not still be good, because it definitely can. But sometimes it's just like you feel like, I feel like I've heard this before, but in a better version. And that's no good. I think the bigger your inspirations are, or I don't know how to say this in English, but the more different bands and different styles that you listen to, the more interesting, I think, the more interesting your compositions will be. But this is not your concern in the beginning. If you are new to writing songs, new to writing music and riffs and stuff like that, you shouldn't worry about this at all. You should steal at all costs. You should steal from everybody, steal as much as possible, and analyze. Find out how come this composer can write and create this sort of what do you say in English? How can he create this kind of environment, or this kind of how can he create this mood with the chords? That's interesting, and that's something that you should steal and should steal. It sounds weird, but there's something you should analyze and find out what is it that he's doing that actually creates this mood, and then be able to reuse that. But if you do it in a way where you combine it with other stuff, it won't be, or hopefully it won't be this obvious where it comes from. So you shouldn't worry about stealing from others, and especially not if you're a beginner, because I guess the chances are that in the beginning, when you compose, chances are not that big that you will release it. You should just be playing around and try out stuff in the beginning. And if you want to learn more about composing and learn a lot of fantastic and useful tools to start, that will help you start creating and start composing, you should definitely check out my new course, Songwriters 101, here in the link below. Subscribe to my channel.